All right, and welcome to the continuation of our training on web development. In our last training, we're looking at how to create HTML form, and we started by learning how to put in the component of a form, which are the input fields that will help us get data from the web users, those who are going to use the web form. So far, we have actually considered few input fields or few components of the form. And we have learned in our last lesson that when you are creating a form, you need to specify the type of data by using the type attribute. You need to specify the name by using the name attribute, the ID attribute for unique identification, placeholder to give a direction on what to input in the field, and we use this required keyword that helps the form not to be submitted when it is empty. So far we have used the text input field, and also we have created an input field for password. And the third thing we have learned how to create is the submit button. So today we're going to continue by creating three more components, which are the checkboxes, the radio buttons, and the drop down. So we're going to start off with checkbox. So I'm going to use H2 to put the heading checkbox so that we'll have a demarcation for all the components we're going to learn today. In the checkbox, the thing that we need to do here is we are going to use all these components except the placeholder. All right, and then the only thing is we are going to rearrange them in a different order. First of all, we're going to start off with the inputs. Then right here in the type attribute, we're going to specify checkbox because that's what we want to create. And you observe automatically that checkbox gives us a box that we can check or uncheck. And then the name that we need to use here, maybe we just use mail because we want to create checkboxes for different fields. All right, so maybe here we use mail X. The ID you use should be unique. All right, so I'm just forming an ID here. You're free to form anyone that you want. All right, I want to use the ID of mail X, and then let me create space here so that you don't get confused. The next thing that we need to put in here is the value. The value that is going to be passed to the database, and that is supposed to be mail. Now, underneath the input field, we have to use a label for mail, and then we're going to put the label text to be mail so that it gives us something like this. Now, let me quickly explain the function of these value attributes. In the previous fields that we created, like this input field for name, we have a space where someone can actually type a name. But after typing and you click on the submit button, whatever you typed in here will be passed on to the database. All right. But in the case of checkboxes do not have a field for you to type. Rather, you check the option that you want, and what is going to be passed onto the database when you check any option of your choice is the value right here. All right, it's not this text that is here that will be passed on. This is just a guide for you to know the checkbox that stands for male and other things. So the value here is what is going to be actually passed on to the database. And the rearrangement is on these ones, the label comes first, but on this one, the label come last so that it can appear after the checkbox itself. Now, I'm going to just make a duplicate of this 3, and the data type remains checkbox for all. This one I'm going to change it to female. So I'm going to change this to female, and the value also is going to be female, and I'll just add X to this, and I think that's it. Then the placeholder, the label, sorry, I'm going to copy this label here, put it under this, then put it under this too, and then change this to female. Then I'm going to bring this one back up here. So this one I'm going to change it to others. All right, so I add XX to this just to make it different. All right, so it's not that you must use exactly what I am using. This is others, and then here we have others, and this also has to be others, and then for this it has to be female, not male this time. All right, so here we have our checkboxes well created. Now remember that if you want to have it display vertically, you need to use the line break. So you can use line break in between just to create the spacing or the vertical arrangement. Okay, and then we have this to be here. All right, here we have created our checkboxes. One thing you should note about checkboxes is that you can actually select multiple options. All right, it's different from radio button. Now let's go on to create our radio button. I'm also going to use my H2, and I'm going to use my H2 and I'll call it radio. All right, underneath I will just copy one of these because it's actually the same thing. There is only one thing that we are going to watch out for that will be that will make a difference. All right, I think two things. The first one, we change the type to from checkbox to radio. All right, and that will give us a round shape. All right, and I'll first of all make this to be male. I want to create the male first, and then I'll put the ID to male, and then the value also I want it to be male. Then this equally I want to make it male, and this also I'll change it to male. So right here we have our radio button. So I'm going to copy this and make 3 copies of each. All right, I'm going to make 3 copies. Oh, sorry. Okay, I have 3, but then I'm going to quickly change this to female. This is female. This is female also. The value also has to be female, and then this has to be female, and then okay, here I need to put in female, and then this one has to be others. So I'm going to copy this, put it here, put it here, and then put it here. All right, here I'm going to change this to others. Okay, the same way I'm going to copy this line break, and then I don't want everything to be, I don't want the horizontal display. So I'm going to put this right here, here, and here. Okay, so these are the two things that we're going to look out for. The first one, which I've touched already, is changing the type to radio. All right, so that it gives us this circle box. All right, the second thing is this. Our checkbox, I said, it gives us option for multiple selection. All right, our radio button shouldn't allow us to do multiple selection. This you can only select one in the radio button, and when you select the first one, if you decide to select another one, the first one will unselect itself automatically. All right, so the reason why it is not functioning right now is because of the name that we used. The name that we used. These checkboxes are created to stand independently, all right? And that is why you can select multiple boxes and it won't be an issue at all. But checkboxes are meant to be grouped together, all right? It has to be grouped together so that if you select one and decide to change, then the first one will be unselected. So I'm going to change the name attribute that I use. Maybe I'm going to change all of them to gender only for the radio button. So when I copy this, put it for the female, and then put it for others as well, and then I'm saving my work. Let's check what's going to happen now. So if I select male, decide to go for female, decide to go for others. So this is how radio button is supposed to work. So right now we have a functioning radio button, as we also have a functioning checkboxes. All right. So make sure you don't forget the two things that I said. If you created a checkbox and you want to copy your code and then create a radio button, make sure you change the type to radio and make sure that any number of radio buttons you are creating must share the same name. All right, except you want it to malfunction by giving you multiple selection. Moving forward, let's now look at drop down. So I'm going to use my H2 once again, and I'll call this drop down. All right. Drop down is an input field that allows us to just select one option by looking through a list of options. And this goes with the keyword select. All right, so select has two attributes, the name, and here I'm going to make the name to be country because I want to give a list of countries, and then the ID, I just want to use CTY, and then in between the select element, I'm going to break it down, and then we put in the list of countries using the option keyword. An option keyword comes with an attribute called value that represents the value that is going to be passed to the database. Remember what I said while talking about these checkboxes and radio buttons, that the value attributes represents the value that is going to be passed to the database. So the same thing is applicable to the drop-down options. Here, if I decide to use Lagos, all right, here I'm passing Lagos here. So you see that the drop-down here is giving us Lagos. This is just a textual representation of the value we want to pass into the database. But the real value has to be in this value attribute. So I have to come over here and type Lagos here. Else, if this value is empty, two things may happen. It's either the form will trigger an error, or when someone selects Lagos and submits, then it's going to submit an empty string into the database, which is not what we want. So I'm going to make a copy of this. And then here, maybe I'm going to go for Abuja. I'm going to go for Benue. I'm going to go for Abia. All right, so I'll quickly change this to Abuja, change this to Abia, change this to Benue. All right, so here we have our drop down. Let me not forget, I have to get this line break and then keep it down here. Okay, so that we have this below. So I can even make it 2 or okay. 2 is okay. And I can also decide to come up here and then use label. I can use my label here, label for country, and then the text is going to be maybe select your country. Okay. So, and I'm going to break this using line break so that I have it this way. Okay, so like this now we have a drop down input field where you can just click on this and then you select any country. All right, so but normally this shouldn't be the first value that will be seen here. So I'm going to come over here and make extra copy of this, and I'll just put this to select. Then here I'm going to pass in select. All right, so that people can actually understand what's going on. When you see select your country, then you see select, that tells you that you have to click here, and then you see the list of the countries. So many other things that we can do around this. Remember, we are just considering the basics of HTML form. All right, so make sure that you watch these videos, make sure that you practice, and make sure that you read, make research on the internet for more knowledge about HTML form. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and share this video so that we can reach out to more people, and then see you in the next class. Bye.